Welcome back to the channel, guys. In the last video I showed you how I scan my images using an Epson V800 flatbed scanner. If you haven't watched the video, make sure to watch it first, because in this video I'm going to show you a second method I use to scan my images, and in the end I'm going to compare both methods and you can decide which one you like best. Okay, let's do this. So now what you see here is my GH5 with a macro lens mounted onto a light stand. You can use a regular tripod. I just had this standing around, so I was using this. And I also used this light table I got off of Amazon, which works pretty well. I'm using the same film holder like in the last video, and the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of the dust. I put the film holder on the light table, make sure I align it perfectly. So it's very important that you don't touch the camera, so there's no shake whatsoever. And that's why I'm using the Panasonic app to take the photos, which works pretty well. Okay, the photos are taken and now it's time to open them up in Lightroom. Now the files are in Lightroom and the workflow will be a little bit different compared to last time, because now we're dealing with negatives and we have to convert them. So here you can also see the settings I used to take the photos. ISO 200, 30mm, f8 and 1/15 of a second. Okay, let's jump into the develop module, and the first thing I'm going to do is get a proper white balance. I get my white balance from this area. Right around here should be perfect. So the next step would be to get rid of all the borders. Okay. 3:2 aspect ratio, and then try to perfectly align it. So because this is a negative, that means all areas that are dark here will appear much brighter later on when we convert this negative. So in order to preserve as much detail as possible, I will reduce the contrast. And yeah, just brighten up like the dark parts in the image. Okay, pull down the contrast like this, and maybe brighten up the shadows, maybe not too much. So you could also use the black slider, but I'm sticking with the shadow slider. So the only thing that's left now is to turn off sharpening. So I'm going to do that. That's about it. And the conversion I will do in Photoshop, but let's take care of the other photo first. Okay, here we go. So first things first, I will take the white balance. After doing this, I will crop the image down and get rid of all the borders like I did before. Okay, that's done. So now let's turn off sharpening. Where's it? Come on. Okay, yeah. Okay, now here in this image we have the same issue like before, like the bright parts and the dark parts. So in order to preserve as much detail, I'm going to pull down the contrast again. and the sky is really bright. So we'll use like this radial filter, invert it, and then I'm going to brighten this up so the sky is not blown out. Maybe make it a little larger like this. Yeah, that's nice. That should look really good. And yeah, that's it. Okay, next I will get rid of some more shadows like this, and then I'm going to open both images in Photoshop. Okay, here we go. So what I'm using to convert my negatives into positives, it's a plugin. The plugin is called Color Perfect, and it works very well. I'm not going into specific details how it works because there are a couple of tutorials on YouTube you can watch. I'm just using it to convert my negatives. What I really like about this plugin that is, it's just one click and you already can see the result, and that's pretty sweet. And also on the bottom here there's a list of film stocks, like presets you can apply for all sorts of color negative film. Also here you can see that I already picked the 500T, which is pretty nice. It already looks pretty good to me, and the only thing I have to take care of is the blacks. They look a little dark, this area here especially, and you can see this up there, and I can fix this by clicking here, and then I will drag down the slider and it will brighten up the shadows. Now there's a little portion of the picture that's where the highlights are blown, so I will just click here and apply this setting, and then it's a little better. And that's basically it. I can now just press OK, and I'm back in Photoshop. Like I mentioned before, if you want to know in detail how this works, just look it up on YouTube and you will find tutorials for Color Perfect. Okay, let's move on. The next step I have to do is take care of the dust. And that's basically the same I did in the last video. So I will use the spot healing brush and clean up all the dust in the photo. Okay, that's it. Let's move on to the next image. Okay, let's open up Color Perfect. Okay, first I have to choose a different preset. But as you can tell, now it looks almost the same. If I would pick a different company, a different film stock, then it will look different. But here, since it's Vision 3, it's the same. As you can see here, the darks are a little too dark, so I will fix that real quick. Okay, pull this down. Now it looks much better. Now we'll take care of the highlights again. Okay, looks better. Maybe there is a little detail loss, but I don't care too much. Okay, that's it. Back to Photoshop, and yeah, back to removing dust. Oh yeah. Okay, the dust is history, and now let's save both images and let's get back to Lightroom. Okay, we're now here in Lightroom, and as you can see, we have now 4 files here. We have the 2 RAW files and the 2 converted PSD files. So on this one, I will now maybe add a little contrast about this, and then I will sharpen the image. Mask it out a little around here, and that's pretty much it. I will now apply the same settings to the second image. Okay, yeah, I think that's fine. Now we'll go to the image and let's have a look. Maybe yeah, lower the contrast a little. And down here it's a little bright, so I will darken it a little. Like this. Maybe a little more. Yeah, I think this looks pretty good. Okay, let's darken the shadows maybe a little, like this. Yeah, maybe, yeah, I think here it looks good. Okay guys, this looks good to me. Maybe now we can compare the scans from the Epson V800 and the photos I took with the GH5. So now here's the first image, and on the left we have the GH5 photo, and on the right it's the scan from the Epson V800, and you can clearly see there's a huge difference in terms of color. I mean, colors are subjective, but I think on the left side it looks much more pleasing, at least for me. And if you look down here to the concrete, it looks much nicer. On the right it's too blue. I mean, I can easily like fix the colors a little in post-processing, but yeah, it saves a lot of work if I just go with the left version. But the biggest difference you will see in terms of details, if I zoom in here, as you can see, the image on the left is a lot sharper. I don't know if it comes across on YouTube here, but on my computer I can clearly see a big difference. You can also see like the grain structure and everything. On the left it's just mushy, there's nothing. And here you can clearly see the grain, and that's really nice and sharp. So that's for me the biggest difference. Also here, if you look here, like in terms of dynamic range, here the shadows are, there's detail. On the right it's a little bit more crushed. So overall I like the image on the left a lot more, really a lot. So let's jump to the second image. Okay, here we have the second image, and it's basically the same. So on the left side it's GH5, and on the right side it's the Epson flatbed. Like on the image before, you can see a clear difference in terms of colors, which I can address this in post, it's no problem. But the biggest difference you can clearly see in dynamic range. If we look up here, the highlights are totally gone here, and on the left it's still there. There's still detail, the blue sky, and yeah, and as you can see here, it's totally blown. If we now take a look at the shadows, here there's a much more detail than compared to here. So overall the dynamic range difference is big. Now if we zoom in again and have a look at the details. Now here on this camouflage dress, you can see here it's quite a big difference. But if we scroll over here to his face, you can clearly see there's a huge difference in terms of details preserved. So the GH5 scan shows a lot more detail and it's much nicer. Okay guys, that's it. Now you know how I scan my negatives. And let me know in the comments below how you scan your negatives, and if you had to pick one of these two methods, which one would you pick? Which one looks more pleasing to you? Let me know in the comments below. And we will see each other in the next video, and don't forget to give it a thumbs up if you liked the video, and we will see each other next time. Auf Wiedersehen!